That's fine. You just have a seat. Yes, yeah. Something else? Sorry. And Rob, quickly, I just thought, you know, where the examples are there, some elected members might get confused with this. I don't know if that was right. Is that right?
Was the one that's been used previously?
Yeah, I think it's missing something.
All right. You start by sitting down.
Oh, I start
by sitting down. You open, and then it's up to you.
Yeah, no. And then I can just ask them all to stand, please. Okay. Right, it is 7 o'clock, so may I ask you all to stand? There are a few little changes that we've made to the opening. So we're going to first of all acknowledge the land. We acknowledge this land that we meet on today as the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship to their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the living Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia or Australia. Please remain standing as, on behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who gave their lives for this country and its people. And the opening prayer, we pray for understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, work and visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. I welcome...
Music.
I'm going to get some of these things right. I welcome the members to the gallery to this meeting. It's very pleasing to see some members, some of our ratepayers joining us. I ask them to observe in respectful silence as the Chamber deliberates on matters that relate to the administration of the City of Burnside. I need to remind all present that all council meetings are recorded and live streamed through the City of Burnside website. Those listening at home are encouraged to download a copy of tonight's agenda, which guides the meeting. Elected members also need to ensure that they are using their microphones properly so that the audio is clear. As far as evacuation is concerned, should there be a fire or any other emergency, the alarm will sound and you are asked to follow the directions of council staff at that point in time. As far as I know, there are no apologies for tonight's meeting.
Nope.
There are no applications for leave of absence. I do need to call for a mover and a seconder for the minutes, to confirm the minutes of our last meeting. So moved Councillor Cornish, seconded Councillor Piggott. And those in favour? I've just put my hand up.
You're not entitled.
No, don't do that anymore. Automatic reaction. So there was, and against? Motion is carried. I have a verbal report this meeting. Apologies that I was not able to get it to the printer in time. I wish to, first of all, acknowledge that as of the 20th of November, when we all attended our induction service, I then became the officially elected member. So, of course, we all had that wonderful opportunity to recognise the service that we provide. I also attended a meeting with a resident on Greenhill Road on the 23rd of November regarding traffic issues, and I did that honouring a promise from a pre-election email. I attended the Royal Australian Regiment's 70th year anniversary celebration at Linden Park on November the 23rd. The Christmas street party for residents of Glen Eagles Road, Mount Osmond on the 25th, council training workshops on the 22nd and the 26th of November, and in addition I met individually with all elected members at various times over the past 2 weeks to discuss priorities and concerns and steps forward for the future. And can I have a motion to receive that? Councillor Davis and Councillor Turnbull. Thank you. And all those in favour? All those against? Carried. And I'll now ask for reports going around the room anti-clockwise, starting with the Beaumont Ward.
I have nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
I attended a meeting of the Glenunga Uniting Church on the 14th of November where the new vicar was inducted. I also attended a meeting with Titanium Property Group on the 15th of November about the Burnside Village redevelopment. I was inducted on the 20th of November, attended training on the 22nd of November and also on the 26th of November.
Like pretty much everyone else, I was just going to report that I attended training on the Thursday the 22nd and Monday the 26th, I believe. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I attended training on the 22nd of November and the 26th of November. Nothing else to report.
I also attended the training on the 22nd and 26th of November.
Thank you. On the 5th of November with former Councillor Di Wilkins, I attended a public hearing on the Heritage Inquiry of the Environment, Resources and Development Committee in State Parliament. On the 22nd, I had the mandatory elected member training as well. On the 26th of November, I did the training as well.
I also attended training on the 26th and the 22nd of November. I have pending an invitation by the Kensington Tennis Club to view its facilities and meet some of its members in due course. Thank you.
I attended the mandatory training sessions.
I did too. I am the same as the two gentlemen, but I did do a one-on-one though because I couldn't attend with the other councillors for the one-on meetings. I attended the workshop on meetings and the legal responsibilities training. Thank you.
I attended the training sessions on the 22nd, the 26th.
I attended the training sessions on the 22nd and the 26th.
Thank you.
Through the Mayor, the minutes record exactly what happens at the council. So for the purposes of proper minute taking, you have to actually say what you attended. Otherwise, we take verbatim what you say. And if you say, I attended that, we will write that councillor attended that. So you have to be very explicit because it's a legal document and it has to reflect the accuracy of what was said on the night. So for the purposes of particularly matters such as these, please be explicit in articulating what you attended.
We have no deputations this evening and we have no petitions this evening. If we move on to item 10, questions on notice, there are none. Motions on notice, there are none. Questions without notice, are there any questions without notice? Right, we shall move on to motions without notice. Are there any motions without notice? All right, now, because of the nature of these items on the agenda tonight, there will be none withdrawn because they all require action. So we will go through them one at a time in the order that they are stated in the agenda. Do you have a question, Councillor Davis? What I'm going to suggest that we do is suspend the normal proceedings and go into informal discussion for 15 minutes, because I am aware that there are 3 recommendations or motions that are to be discussed. One, of course, is that which is stated in our document, and I'm aware of at least 2 others. There could even be more, but I'm aware of 2 others that have been sent to me, and I think that might be the best way for us to deal with them. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of toing and froing, and I think we need to open up discussion, let people talk about what they're proposing, think about what, everyone have the opportunity to think about it, and then we'll look at it.
Don't have to move it.
There's no requirement for moving.
You just need to seek
So
2/3.
I just need for people to vote in favour or against. So all I'm going to ask you to do is raise your hand if you are in favour of 15 minutes short-term suspension of orders.
Yes.
Yes, we have sufficient numbers. Thank you very much. Then I will open the debate. Sorry, the discussion, not the debate.
I might suggest, I think that I understand that there's 2. There's what I'm proposing, and then I think there's another one from Councillor Cornish. Is there another one?
Yes, the one with the officer's recommendation.
Oh, and the officer's recommendation. Okay, so I might talk to mine then, and then perhaps give Cornish the opportunity to move his. Could we at least have it on the screen as to what I'm proposing? We've got it on our screens, yeah.
It's the gallery.
Yeah. Should we really just put the motion? Well, now we're waiting about.
Have a formal process of one person speaking at a time, but we'll start with Councillor.
So we're permitted to debate. This is probably a question for the governance officer. We're permitted to debate matters where there's no motion. So at the moment, we'd be actually debating.
Discussing, not debating.
Through the Mayor, you're not debating, you're articulating. It's simply a discussion amongst members. It's conversation, not debate.
Okay, we'll give it a go.
Get on and converse.
So you all have the officer's recommendation set out in your agenda papers. I'm proposing to make a couple of changes to that. And I'll just set out those changes now. So items on page, what is this? Page 7 of your agendas. That the report be received as normal, that the December 2018 council meeting be held on Tuesday the 11th of December 2018 commencing at 7 p.m. as normal. The third one as normal. I'm not going to move the fourth one because I believe Councillor Cornish wishes to discuss that, and that's how many meetings we have per month. My understanding is Councillor Cornish wishes to advocate for a once a month meeting, so I'll leave that to him. And then on part 4, my proposal is in the agenda to move the officer's report and the mayor's report until after the substantive questions for the council for that evening. So move it closer to the subsidiaries regional, or after the subsidiaries regional, subsidiaries, another organisation/entities item. So that would move those 2 items further on in the agenda, and that public question time be removed, and that public question time be replaced in another way. So I suppose I'll speak to this because that's what we have to do.
You're only explaining it, aren't you?
You just have questions because speaking to it.
Yeah, I mean it's quite formal then.
We're not formal.
Yeah.
It's clear. We're not formal.
How much time have we all got to have a say?
15 minutes we started off for each person.
Why do you want to do that?
In total 15 minutes. If we need to move it further than that, we will. These items are essential to the way that we operate for the rest of at least the next 6 months anyway.
So, okay, so I'll advocate for it. It's just a little bit strange, that's why I'm a bit confused. Normally you'd go into a motion and then I advocate it in that formal way and I have 5 minutes to put it and then we go again. But anyway. So the reason why I'd like to do this is what I've noticed over the last term of council is that we have a problem with, you give your officer's report as we did tonight, and that took about 10 minutes for us to do, and the mayor's report. And then we go through our substantive part of the agenda, and then we have other business at the end of it, and that's another opportunity for people then to discuss. Now, tonight we were very, very efficient, and that was very good to see. However, what tends to happen then is that there becomes far more commentary on what actually happened at those meetings, and this agenda item I found gets bigger and bigger. And then at the end of the meeting, then we have other business, and then elected members then use that as another opportunity to reiterate what they said at the beginning. So to my mind, these types of matters should be grouped together and moved to the end of the agenda so that we can deal with the substantive issues of council initially, and then move on to these types of items where it's reports from us. Because at the end of the day, we will have agendas which are 600, 700, 900 pages long in some cases. They can be huge. And the information and the decision making that we need to get through can be highly, is certainly substantial. And on a number of occasions, we've been here until 11:30, if not later. And so if you start off the meeting with, I suppose, that indulgence in terms of those reports, then it can certainly push it back to, it can certainly push back the meeting, meaning that we then don't have time to properly discuss other items, and meaning that people take those liberties. So that's my point on that one.
So are you saying arguing for 2 meetings or?
No, I'm just talking about moving to agenda items to later on. Yeah.
Why don't we just submit a written report?
I agree 100% that would be the most efficient way of doing it, and in my view that would be the best way, but my understanding is the governance officer will be able to tell us that that's unlawful, I suppose.
Through the Mayor, as I mentioned before, the record of the meeting has to be what you said at the meeting. So simply submitting a written submission on what you've done and saying this is what I've done doesn't actually meet the requirements of the regulations. Yeah, you can do that, but then you still have to read it all out.
Yeah, because people watching at home can't see it.
However, in our last council, the Mayor had a report that was always in our minutes, and he never spoke to it. He said, I will assume that you've read my written report.
Couldn't we make it a report that we would submit?
Through the Mayor, that was a little bit different because the Mayor's report was in the agenda. It was in written format in the agenda, whether he wished to speak to it or not, as the current Mayor may wish to or not speak to it, but it's in the agenda. It's in.
Yeah, can we put it in the agenda?
If the council resolves that it wishes to receive a written report to be included in the agenda, that's fine.
Cool. I think that's even better. So let's do that. That's my view. I think that we would save so much time. Yeah.
Through the Mayor, again, that requires a number of guidelines around it because it would have to be submitted to the administration 5 days before the date of the council meeting, the 5 o'clock on the Wednesday before the Tuesday, all of those things. So we need to create a set of guidelines around it. It's not insurmountable, but it's possible.
Okay. So maybe look at that later on. That's probably the best opportunity. So if we, my position would be we continue with this for now, and then later on have a look at doing that, because I do think it would save us a considerable amount of time. And in my personal opinion, those reports, they don't actually do anything. They don't help you. I mean, I went to the elected member training, but to me it's not a substantive question for ratepayers. The second part of the motion is in regards to public question time. Now, the problem that I see with this this part of it is that the public question time will be put to almost the very end of our agenda. So that item 14 that we'll go through tonight, and you'll see how long it takes us, it could take us up to 10:30. So if there is a member of the public who wishes to come and ask us a question, they might have to wait from 7 o'clock until 10 o'clock or 9:30, and they would have no idea when we would actually reach that agenda time. So you'd have to have that person sitting there for that entire length of time. The second problem with it is it would only be for 15 minutes. Now that person has 2 minutes to ask a question, and then presumably the answer would take 5 minutes, because the question's not going to be, do you like trees? It's not going to be a simple question. It's going to be a complicated question. And so in reality, if you have 3 or 4 people who have all come along, they've waited for a number of hours to ask that question, they might get 2 questions. And then the question for the chamber is, well, you've had these people waiting here the entire night. Surely you should just let them ask their question. And so I'm very worried that this agenda item will move from being 15 minutes to half an hour, or however long it takes to get through the questions. So my alternative to this, and I'm very supportive of the officer's recommendation to hold a public question time, is to give it the proper time period, and have a 1-hour session every 3rd Tuesday, which I understand that this chamber would be vacant. So it's once a month, a 1-hour opportunity for members of the public to come and ask questions. It would not be a meeting of council, it would not be a requirement. However, I'd certainly be interested in attending. Any of us could attend, but members of the public could then ask questions of the Mayor as to current council policy, or they might ask a variety of questions. Now, I believe that if we do it in this way, which is proposed and put in our agenda, then it's almost certain to fail, because you are making it a system which is so difficult and so difficult for someone to actually utilise that you would not have anybody here. And so you would go out and say, we now have a public question time, but it's so difficult that no one can ever use it. So in my view, we should do this properly. We should give people the proper opportunity to ask those questions and move it to one meeting a month and for a period of an hour. And so those are my submissions. I think Councillor Cornish then has a view on how many meetings we should have. If you have questions of me, go for it.
How are we going to have our say? Are we going to go around the table, or?
Yes, I think that's the safest and the best way to go. So Carol, will you go next?
I'm good to pass.
I'm happy to. I understand the points of view that Councillor Davis has put forward. I actually support the CEO's recommendations in the report, with the exception, I particularly am keen that we have 2 meetings a month. I think we really need, for the diligence that we need to give to the business that comes before us and the lifestyles that everybody has, with a very busy day before we come to council, that we have a meeting twice a month from 7 o'clock till whenever, hopefully a couple of hours, sometimes 3 or 4. But I think we do need that process. I do not support having question time with the proposal that we've got before us. We've got no policy on what a question time will be. There's no discussion about or indication as to whether this is from residents, ratepayers, business owners, whether it's from anybody in South Australia who can ask questions of us, whether it's the media who can ask questions. It's what sort of questions would we have? Would they be on policy, council policy, on our strategic plan, whether it's issues such as our bylaws and their enforcement, planning matters, and we all know how controversial they are, public safety, nuisances. There's just so many issues that people can ask questions on, and I think we need to have some sort of policy and guidance before we go down that track. So that's my concerns in terms of this motion. Thank you.
Do you want to talk next?
Not even on. Yeah, I'm on now. I just had a question. I guess this might get fleshed out during the debate, but I understand the question time was based on another council's model. So I guess I was keen to hear about how that has worked and what questions have come up in that council. I guess just to perhaps put people's mind at ease, whether anyone has experience in understanding that. So I guess that might come out in the debate, or it may come out now. I'm not sure of the question.
Thanks. As Councillor Davis sort of alluded...
Can I just interrupt a moment? Ms Reynolds has a response to that question. It might be timely for that response to come through now. And then can I hold on for you, Councillor Cornish?
Yep. Do we need to extend time?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to.
We've got 1 minute left, so I'll be quick. while I was at City of Mitcham, they had a very similar format of public question time. And what we did find that there were only a group full of people who were repeated, ratepayers who came and asked very similar questions. So at Mitcham, that's how it was. That's how it worked. There was a limited amount of time. I think from memory, it was about 3 minutes or so per person. But that's how the model worked. So we did find that it was the same people asking the same questions. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to follow up, just give any other advice? Mr. Camp, you experienced in other councils? All right. We need to extend the time, and I'm going to suggest that we extend it by at least another 10 minutes so that we can get the rest of the way around. Does that meet everyone's approval?
Seek leave.
I just have to get...
Two-thirds.
I'm going to stop putting my hand.
Yeah.
Two-thirds?
Yeah.
Yes, again. We're going to have to do it again. So, Councillor Hoover? Oh, sorry.
Skip.
I apologise.
No, that's perfectly fine. I'll get Robert to scroll down. So there were 2 sections for mine. I wasn't going to go for 1 meeting a month, although it was going to be 1 ordinary meeting a month. I was going to use the second Tuesday for an informal gathering, being a workshop. We've got a lot of new members around the chamber, and still have the set two meetings a month, but one being a workshop to actually understand what's coming up and to get our heads around it. And then the 4th Tuesday of every month being the actual ordinary meeting where we make the decisions and that. It's a model that works well in Unley, and they've been doing it for quite some time. So that's what I've advocated there. The last section there, number 7, is also I was also going to propose that council establish a working group consisting of at least 3 elected members and 2 senior staff to provide a report back with recommendations to council by December 2019, which sort of ties in with our meeting agendas processes that we have to do within the first 12 months, to provide some sort of effective and efficient governance models and a recommended structure for the City of Burnside. So we don't use a lot of Section 41 committees, so we could decide that traffic calming in the City of Burnside is something that is a hot topic, and we might need 2 elected members and some engineers and some traffic people and the police on a select committee that looks at that. We might even decide to actually have a governance committee where a couple of people could sit around and work out governance issues. There could be a heritage committee or a conservation committee or a reserves and parks committee, but it might be better for those committees to actually do that work instead of it coming always to this chamber, and that's something that I think we should explore. So I've thought, let's set up a working group and come up with some sort of method to relook at the structure of governance at the City of Burnside. So that's the other part of the motion that I did, so I'll move it on.
Thank you. Look, I really think we need to monitor, get some facts on the time we use in the agendas items. So before we make a change, get some facts, and it sounds like tonight we were fairly quick and efficient. So before change is made, monitoring, I like the recommendations of the officer, the council officer. Perhaps the agenda item, I agree with Councillor Davis that the agenda item being at the end of the agenda items there is a risk that will be very late at night, and it would be helpful to have that public meeting time, public question time earlier in the evening, perhaps straight after us as councillors provide our members' reports, because that is a time where we are the bridge between the residents, ratepayers and the administration. So if it could all be done in that theme, in that time for residents and ratepayers, I think that may be helpful. Thank you.
There's some really interesting and insightful perspectives about the structure of the agenda, which I hadn't considered. So I guess as a new councillor, I am very keen to get a feel myself for this and how it works. I absolutely take the points of Councillor Davis about moving the agenda items. I think if our intention is to get through everything in every single meeting, then the movement of the items should, I guess, in a material sense, be inconsequential. Regarding the question time, I'm very supportive of the concept in terms of giving the public opportunity to hear their voice. But I also, I guess, stand a little bit reserved on exactly what format that needs to take. And at this stage, I'm happy to accept the suggestion of the officer as it is in the agenda.
I'm happy with 2 council meetings a month. I agree with Councillor Davis about moving the people's reports to the back. I would like to see a question time in the council meeting, because if we don't, we'll all end up coming to council 3 times a month rather than 2. But I would like to see it earlier in the evening. I think that's a good recommendation. That 10:30 is far too late. So I agree with Councillor Henschke on that.
Mayor, I don't think I can add much more. I think that Councillor Hubel and my fellow councillor next door to me, I've forgotten your name already, James. Harvey. Sorry, I'm new. But look, I think there's a lot of good things here. You know, I do listen very carefully to what the members who've been here before are saying to us. I'm just hoping that this council does debate well and has respect for each other. So I do want to give it a go, but I do understand there needs to be a 6-month trial, and we do rely on you, Mayor, to kind of guide us through this. But I just want to give it a go. So I'm the same as both Councillor Hubel and Councillor Jones. Thank you.
I like the idea of question time. I think we, as a new council, we need to be open and transparent, and that's a good way of trying it, with the people in the gallery having the chance to speak. I think maybe it could be moved to a different spot. If it's only 15 minutes, it could come up the agenda further, so that people don't have to sit around till the end of the time. And also it could be written, questions could be written, passed in, and so that the people answering them have some knowledge before and can speed up things. I really like to see it included. Ray having the meetings, I'd be guided on that one, but I actually like Councillor Cornish's idea, where you've got the informal gathering. A lot of us are new, we've been thrown into the deep end, and this is sort of more of a mentoring thing in a way, and it's a fabulous idea to me. Thank you.
Couple of things. Big fan of 2 meetings a month. 1 meeting a month just doesn't work. I do have personal experience in having 1 council meeting a month. You're getting here at 6 or 7, you're still here until midnight, you're tired, you're not thinking. It doesn't work. So 2 meetings a month is an absolute minimum requirement, I think. In terms of question time, I think it's a great idea. I do have experience in witnessing question time at the Mount Barker Council. It seemed orderly, it seemed efficient, it didn't seem too political, it seemed very, very tame and very normal. I don't know why those particular people chose to undertake a question time, but they did, and the answers were given, and it seemed to work well. So it wasn't hijacked or all those sort of nasty things you sometimes hear. It was quite good, and for whatever reason they chose to ask those questions in a public forum, for whatever reason, rather than going through another channel. But for whatever reason, it worked. In terms of question time being moved to the back, I agree that is a terrible idea of having people wait until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. If we're going to reduce our time spent in our monthly or fortnightly reports, we could use that time to question time. So it's all about saving 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and allocating that better to things like question time. So they could be very easily straight after, you know, the confirmation of the minutes or something like that. So if someone's here, they've got a burning question they want to ask, they can ask and they can go home. But I don't like the idea of having it on a 3rd meeting. I don't think it does it justice. This is a formal, proper council meeting. They want to be heard in a proper, formal way with the media and and everything. If we're going to sort of downgrade it to a little sort of thing on the side, which we might attend, we might not, media might attend, they might not, it really does diminish the role of what question time is all about. They might as well just come and have a private meeting with the CEO or the Mayor. So I would like to see question time in a normal council meeting and right at the beginning.
I like 2 meetings a month and I like 2 proper meetings a month, and while I take Councillor Cornish's point that the second meeting could be informal gathering, I have some serious reservations about that, in the sense that informal gatherings cannot make decisions. You can only make decisions at a formal council meeting. So while we would still meet twice a month, the business of council would only take place once a month, and I think that that isn't often enough. Informal meetings cannot, must not. It's illegal to make decisions at them. So everybody needs to be really clear that we meet twice a month but only actually make decisions once a month. So in effect, you're meeting once a month in a real sense. So the other meeting that you're having is like we had last night. So I think we need to be mindful of that. I am not averse to having question time, but my understanding and my reading of this report is that as councillors, there is nothing to be done by us during this question time except witness. So in a real sense, this is a meeting between the Mayor and whoever wants to ask the Mayor questions, and ask the administration questions through the Mayor. So I have no business there. The question isn't asked. There's no sense of whether those people that are asking questions have gone to the local councillors prior to coming here to ask their questions, to have their questions answered in a different way. There's no sense of whether those people have actually come to administration. There's no sense of what those questions might be. And I have no business in that. So I'm very happy for that to take place on the 3rd Tuesday of the month, because I have no part to play in question time. Nobody sitting in this chamber except the Mayor has any part to play in question time. So what we're actually doing is actually making up the numbers, if we wish. And in that sense, I'm not altogether sure that it has a lot of success if it's embedded in a council meeting at the end of a meeting for a scant 15 minutes without any knowledge of questions that might come forward. They're not written in. There's nothing like that. I actually think if we're going to take this seriously, having it separate with the Mayor in attendance and administration in attendance, and the sort of people that should be in attendance, like Head of Planning, like the Chief Engineer, the sorts of people that can ask questions that might come up need to be there. I can't answer the questions about curbing. I've got no idea what they use in hot mix when they do paving. I've got no idea of what the schedule is of when this particular area is actually going to have its footpaths renewed. I can't answer those questions. So in that sense, I have no business with anyone that's asking questions of the administration through the Mayor. So I actually think putting aside an hour on the 3rd Tuesday of the month is a very respectful way of giving our residents an opportunity to come in at a decent time and to be properly heard. So I'm not sure that sticking this in as an agenda item to be rushed through in a 15-minute block, and it doesn't matter whether you've got it at the beginning or at the end, it's going to be a rush, is actually being respectful to people that might have questions that they want to ask. And we will just be sitting there. We are not engaging with them. There's no debate. We are just witnesses in that. So I just think that worries me about that whole process. I don't think it actually achieves perhaps what the intent will be.
Is there anyone else? You only asked a question. Would you like to say?
I was just, wanted to, I guess this isn't formal debate, but just perhaps bring up the fact that appreciate the question time may be directed at the Mayor and perhaps the administration, but I guess us as councillors all need to understand the issues within our community. So I guess I appreciate that we may not be directly involved in answering those questions, but as a member of council, I would not be unhappy to sit in and listen on those 15 minutes. I think we perhaps potentially might all be enlightened by some of the issues within the community. I guess perhaps as a compromise, perhaps for a trial period, we could do it once a month for the 15 minutes. I don't know if that throws out the agenda and perhaps makes life more difficult, but just throwing it out there. Thanks.
No, I'm happy to.
Do you wish to say anything now?
No.
Okay.
We
have gone over our time.
Quick question.
Yes.
What was the idea? What is the idea of who will actually ask the questions? Is it purely our residents and ratepayers, or is it the press or anyone else? Do we have any feel for what the intent is?
If you grant me the opportunity, we've gone over time to speak just for less than 2 minutes, I'd like to justify. First of all, in relation to the question time, I attended 2 or 3 meetings at Campbelltown Council to find out how question time worked. This was going back quite a while. I did make some similar observations that Ms Reynolds did about those people who asked questions. They were generally quite short. They generally received very quick responses in terms of answers through the Mayor of the administration. I did, on one occasion, there was an answer that could not be given at the time, but the person's name was taken and details of following it up, and then the answers to that question were included in the minutes at the next council meeting. I believe, as I stood for open and transparent governance and for openness and the ability for any ratepayer, whether they be a business owner, a shopkeeper, an elderly person who wishes to come to a meeting, or a young person who has a question, I would encourage young people to come to this and ask questions from the community, school students perhaps. There were some at Campbelltown on one occasion. I think it's an opportunity for people to come and see how the council operates. I would be much keener to have it much earlier in the agenda. In fact, I'm suggesting it point number 10, straight after petitions and deputations, because a deputation is a form of question time where people are focusing their ideas and on something that's going to be reported that night. That's my first thing. The other issue of the time of the meetings is that, yes, we know that no decisions can be made in an informal meeting or workshop, but they can be used prior to the next council meeting to inform, particularly since there are a lot of people around the room who've got a lot of informing, catching up to do. They could be used very effectively to help inform items that were going to be on the next agenda. Not to influence, but to inform. No decisions are made, of course, at those kind of workshops. And I'm keen, you know that I'm keen for change. I'm also keen to try this for a period of time, whether it's 6 months or 3 months, I leave it to you.
Can I just clarify that? Are you leaving it open to the press?
Anyone who wishes to ask a question, who makes the effort to come to this meeting, or any meeting, should be respected with the opportunity to ask a question and be provided with an answer, if that answer can be provided on the night at the time. Otherwise, it is followed up.
Through the Mayor, it's pretty unreasonable for me to make comment about what's happening in Onkaparinga. So yes, it clearly has to be about something that's happening in Burnside.
I will close the suspension of proceedings and move into formal time. And Councillor Davis?
Yeah, I'd like to move my motion. So in my view, whilst I understand that there is, in my view, that this can take a lot of time in terms of the officers' reports and the mayor's reports, and it stops us from getting to the substantive issues that we need to discuss on a night. And in my view, that should be moved to the end of it. And I have seen many members take liberties in that, whilst the new members haven't seen that. They take a number of liberties and go through in detail as to what they have done, which is great. However, if you do it at the beginning of the meeting, I feel there's less pressure on you to make that short. And so in my view, that will make meetings far more quick. So you still get to do it, it's just at a different time. So it won't inconvenience you in any way. It won't gag you. You can say, put down your reports, and off you go, just at a different time. In terms of the public question time, my strong view is that this is a way, I think that there will be significant public criticism in the way that this is conducted, because essentially, in my view, this is setting this up to fail. And as I said, as I debated before, a member of the gallery might sit there all night, and even if they do even if, say, 10 residents come at the start of the meeting, and let's just say we allocate 15 minutes to it, and they could be any number of questions. They could be, I don't agree with using Roundup, and what's the current council policy on Roundup? It could be, could the mayor please, or could the CEO please disclose or tell me what your credit card expenditure was for the last month and what you spent it on. It could be things which are, policy questions of the council, which of course we couldn't answer. Or it could be a large number of group of residents. So from time to time we make decisions, and a large number of group of residents will come and make a representation. And I believe it's quite unfair then if you have, say, 2 groups, and sometimes we do have 2 groups of residents, is to how you choose your questions. Now, in my view, residents have always had the ability to come to this chamber and talk to us about an issue. That has never, ever not been the case. They have 25 minutes, in fact, to come and give their opinion or their view on different council policies. And that happens during the deputation section. And that happens every single night, and tonight we didn't have any deputations. So by moving public question, having this public question time, it does not increase the open and transparency of it. Really, it asks for questions without notice, whereas deputations would generally be on a specific topic. In my view, I think that if this is to work, and if Burnside is to look, and if we want to be open and transparent, then we shouldn't set it up to fail. We should dedicate an hour, and elected members need not be there. I would imagine that it'd be essentially a mayor's listening post, or a way for people to come and speak with the mayor, or ask questions of the mayor and potentially administration if they'd like to attend, about council. And so those questions, say from school children who would say, what is a mayor? What does a mayor do? That could certainly happen on those evenings. And my motion says that it would happen on the 3rd Tuesday of every month for an hour. And that would give them full opportunity to ask those questions. And in fact, if I was a parent, is that 4 minutes? Yep. Then I would certainly encourage my children to do that. So my concern with this is this is not open and transparent. What this is doing is it's setting it up to fail. And I believe that this can be very successful, and I hear it's successful in Campbelltown, but I believe we can do it better, to have a dedicated time where people can come to council, come to the mayor and ask those questions. And in my view, that will be the best way forward. So I hope that you'll support it, and I commend the motion to you.
Do we have a seconder, please? Seconder, Councillor Lemon?
Yes, I'm happy to second this. I'm not read.
No, I'm not. No, we'll do that.
Why am I not read?
Oh, sorry.
Still not read?
Oh, you've got to turn off. So
I want to move an amendment. I want to move a motion.
She's seconding.
I'm seconding this. I think that this is quite true. I think we already have the opportunity for people to come and give their point of view, and they can give their point of view through deputations, and they can give their point of view through at the beginning and let me just go back and check, deputations and petition, well, not petitions so much, but certainly deputations, and that's where we usually have any matters of immediate interest, and matters of immediate interest will come to the council where we're going to discuss them, and we have had experience in that. In terms of making this truly transparent so that people feel that their mayor is accessible, clearly not to me right now because she's busy doing other things, that their mayor is... That the mayor is accessible to the residents of Burnside, setting aside a special time and an hour for that is actually respectful to the people of Burnside. It actually says, I consider this is important. I'm going to set aside a time at a decent hour, 7 o'clock on the third Tuesday of the month, to come along. You can ask me any questions on any subject. I will attempt to answer them on the night, and if I cannot, it will go in the council minutes, or you can come back a month later and you will have the proper answer from administration. That is actually doing it properly. You can have deputations of school children, you can have deputations of senior citizens, you can have any number of people coming along to that meeting at a decent hour for a decent amount of time, not 15 minutes, embedded within a council meeting. So I actually truly support that as a separate issue for it to take place in that way at a trial period, and then we assess that in 3 or 6 months, well, in 6 months' time, to see whether that's actually worked well. So in that sense, I totally support this motion, this amended motion.
I have a question. Can I ask a question about the proposal?
You've got to press the button. Yeah. You've got to press your button. Yeah. You're not next. Jane's next.
Has Councillor, have you finished?
Yes, she said.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I wish...
Press your buttons and the queuing order will tell the Mayor who's next to speak.
So I'm right to go?
Yes, you are.
Thanks. I actually wish to move in accordance with the officer's recommendation. I believe...
This is an amendment, Councillor Davey.
Oh.
And it's contrary
so how do I have my say
I suggest we go ahead and we vote on this motion, and then if you have another motion to put forward, then you can put that one up forward next.
Okay, thanks.
So we now have Councillor Hughes. Sorry, no, it's Councillor Carbone.
I'd like to speak against the amendment. The motion, sorry. Councillor Davis said a couple of times that by having it the way the officers would prefer is setting it up to fail. Having it as a second-class meeting tapped onto the side will set it up for fail. People come along to ask questions for various reasons, but they want to be treated with respect, and they want to do it with everybody here at a normal, formal council meeting, with all the members of the public, with the media, and especially with all of us. If it's going to be a little committee thing that's going to be on the third Tuesday, and it's really only there for public question time and that's it and so forth, it's not going to do it. It won't be done properly, and it won't be doing it justice. So it's not a council meeting. It's not a real council meeting. They deserve to be heard properly. And I think by having it as a second-class meeting, you will set up the whole proposal to fail. Other councils do it. It's done very well. It's done very properly. It's not hijacked, as I mentioned before. And I think simply by doing it in a second-class meeting, something that's a little sort of tapped onto the side won't do it justice, and that will set it up to fail.
You bailed. No, it's tactic. Could you clarify for me? whether to put an amendment to this motion that put the public question time back into the meeting as opposed to the different meeting. Would that be an appropriate amendment? As in an acceptable amendment, I should say.
Yeah.
The answer to that is no, it can't be, because the whole purpose of Councillor Davis's motion is to actually remove it completely from the formal agenda.
Well, as I read it, he still wants to do public question time under certain conditions. All I'm looking to do is tweak number letter B, in truth. So
then it is actually not the way a public question time functions in other councils that are used as a model. What it becomes is an opportunity to meet with the Mayor and ask questions in an informal way. No, I'm misunderstanding.
You do.
He says remove question times from the agenda.
Right.
Suggesting put it back in the agenda. That's contrary to Councillor Davis's
Okay,
motion.
so it's contrary to Councillor Davis's motion. So therefore, we need to vote on this motion first.
Thank you.
The next person is Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. My comments to add to the discussion is that by having 15 minutes as proposed by the officer provides a short period of time, it's low risk, it's frequent. It is a trial, we have to remember, trying to solve a problem of openness and transparency. And I think we go through with the trial, see if it's a good solution, get feedback from constituents, perhaps. Thank you.
Councillor Turnbull.
I would like to see the change of format, mainly to show the people of Burnside Council that we can change. They want change, they voted for change, and change can be a good thing, and this one, it will actually add to the openness and the transparency. So I would like to see it because of that.
Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. Well, if I could speak to it now, I agree with Councillor Turnbull. I think actually we don't know whether it'll work. It could end up with the same people asking the same questions. That's certainly a risk. But I also agree with Councillor Carbone in that I do feel that the alternative time would wither on the vine, and so I do feel that the proposal, and I don't know whether it will work, and the proposal as it currently stands, the recommendation is to have a 6-month trial, but I feel that introducing something like this is symbolic and possibly effective in showing to the residents of Burnside they've got an opportunity to engage. So I feel that I'll be voting against this.
Anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Davis, you have an opportunity to speak again.
Thank you. I think this is not going to achieve what you think it will. I don't think that it's symbolic. And it's not that I'm concerned that it'll be hijacked. It's not that I'm concerned that people come in and ask angry questions or anything like that. They should be able to do that. And normally I would meet with residents who are unhappy and sit down and work through those problems with them. That's our normal job. In my view, this is not symbolic. This is not a change of open and transparency. This is, the original officer's recommendation is an attempt to hide this in the end of the agenda and prevent people from having the opportunity to come and sit here and ask those questions. And so in my view, this motion gives people it gives it the credence. What it does is it says, we think that you're worth more than 15 minutes. We think that you're worth more than 15 minutes in agenda at the end, after everything that's happened, and we might ask residents to sit here for however long, for hours, 2 or 3 hours, until we get to that agenda item, and then say, oh, sorry, we've run out of time, please go home. That's not open and transparent. That's not a change of Burnside. That's not improving anything. What I'm proposing to do is to have a formal meeting. It's not a joke. It's not an unsubstantive thing. It's a formal meeting to give people a full opportunity to express what they want. Now, all the elected members here will be able to see the questions and the answers that were provided, by residents. And I know that I will certainly attend those meetings, and it might be very quick, and other times I might not, it depends. But we will have a full list of those questions, and it could even be live streamed if we so choose. And we can actually sit there and see how busy they are. But in my view, putting it to the end of the agenda is a way of, it's a cop-out in many ways, and it should be a priority for us if we want to move forward. So I commend this motion to you. I hope that you will support it. And I think that what we will see quite quickly is that people, if it's a someone from a school, they won't be sitting here until 10 o'clock at night. They won't be. They won't be sitting here and waiting. And I don't think that our residents should have to wait for an unknown time at a council meeting. And the meetings that are heard once a month aren't trivial. They're not a waste of time. They're not inconsequential. You come into this chamber and you can speak directly with the mayor in a very formal setting and ask your questions. And to me, this gives it the best chance to succeed. I think that we will see very quickly that nobody will come to these meetings. And in my view, it's quite disrespectful to do it in this way. Because what it will do is it will set it up to make it incredibly difficult for a member of the public to come here and actually ask a question, which we're promising. So I believe we should be open and transparent and formalise this process and make it mean something, not an inconvenience where they get to ask 2 questions, because you get to ask a question for 2 minutes, then there'll be an answer for 5 minutes. So after waiting for 2 hours or 2.5 hours, you're going to get 2 questions. You're going to get 2 questions. That's not open and transparent. That's not a change of Burnside. To me, it's a bit of a cop-out. So I strongly feel we should do this properly. We should see how it goes. If it doesn't work, then let's put it into this agenda. We can always change back. But in my view, starting off on our first motion with a cop-out, I don't think is a good way for us to start. So I hope that you'll support this motion.
Right, can I have... Oh, so did you...
Through the Mayor, the comment that was made that the administration put the question time at section 18 to bury it is quite frankly offensive.
I didn't mean to be offensive. I apologise if it's offensive.
At any point in time, the purpose of including it was to facilitate the council being transparent and open. Irrespective of where we put it in the agenda, the purpose of it was to facilitate a question time. I think the point has been missed that question time has been introduced. Where it sits in the agenda is up to the council to decide.
Yeah, sure. Let me apologise to the administration. That wasn't my intention. I just felt that what I should have said was that I believe it has been buried, and I withdraw my criticism of the administration. I don't think they did that on purpose at all. So I apologise to you.
Thank you, Mayor Monceau. I won't move mine exactly in entirety. I'll use the officer's original recommendation if I can. However, for number 5, I'd like to actually borrow Councillor Davis's, because I'm trying to read the room from our informal chat. Not his number 5, his number 4, because he skipped one. Thank you, Rob. If you can copy that down and replace number 5 in the actual, yep. And number 2 of that number 5, so 5.2, the public question time be moved to agenda item 10. And could I also add my number 7 about the working party at the end of it? And speaking to that, I've read the room. You guys still want to have 2 meetings a month. I still think it's a good idea. I really think it's a good idea to have an informal session before a council meeting, because otherwise you end up having an hour-long debate because there are questions you need to ask and get answers for, and it's in a very formal manner, whereas in an informal gathering you can ask as many questions as you want and get on top of the topic before it comes to this chamber. So I really think possibly we can reconsider it, and my number 7 is possibly that reconsideration of getting together a working party to actually have a look at the governance and the governance structure here. But I'll leave it be. I read the room. You'll want 2 meetings a month, so I'll leave that as is. I also read the room in terms of thinking that it was a good idea to put our delegates and mayor's reports further on so we don't waste a lot of time up front. So I've kind of moved that way too, and to bring the public question time a little earlier, so after the deputations and petitions. I thought that was something that I heard quite a lot of going around. And obviously I've also moved that I think we should have a working party and discuss our governance and structures and committees and have a report back to council in about a year. So I hope I get a seconder for the motion. I think we've debated this long enough, so I'll put it to the chamber.
Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Turnbull? Apologies, I didn't look on this. It does say Councillor Carbone.
Happy to second it. Like it a lot. Thank you very much. Probably the one thing that I forgot to mention earlier is the term community engagement. And a lot of us talked about community engagement during the election, and having a question time during a normal council meeting towards the front of the agenda would go a long way to engaging more community, because they might come along, ask a question, and then while I'm here, I might as well stay for the rest of the meeting and find out what my council is doing. So that's a little spin-off that we're getting from this question time as well. So more audience, the more the better. Got plenty of chairs there, so why not? Yeah, so that's all I had to say.
Councillor Davis.
Yep, I'd like to say I'm happy to support the motion. I hope that it goes well and that we do see the objective. If I could ask a question, is there an intent to then publicise this item to the committee? What would that involve?
Through the Mayor, if Council resolves in accordance with this motion, we'll certainly publicise it in next editions of the Focus, but certainly on our website and any other social media.
Okay, cool.
Councillor Davey. Sorry, I didn't say it with the microphone on. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship. I just have a question. I thank Councillor Cornish for his motion, but I'm not clear about a committee to establish efficient and effective governance and recommend governance structures for the City of Burnside. Because I have to say, I think we've already got pretty good governance structures in place. I don't really understand what this means in terms of what aspects of governance and how that relates to meetings.
Councillor Cornish will take those on board in his summing up.
Can I then, sorry, if I speak now, can I then, if I oppose this motion, can I then speak to another motion?
Yep. Only if this motion is lost.
Okay, I'll foreshadow that I won't support this motion. I hear what the feeling is in the room too about public question time, even though I have serious concerns about it, and to me there isn't enough structure presented about how it would work. I'm happy to go along with that. I would prefer to see the straightforward officer's report recommendation be adopted. I don't know that we actually need another investigation into governance and structures in Burnside, not at this stage anyway. So I foreshadow that if this motion fails.
Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. I'd like to speak in support of the motion. I guess one of the advantages of an informal session that we did have, that we don't, in my experience, have them very often, but it does does allow, as Councillor Cornish so eloquently put, give you an idea of the mood of the room. And at the end of the day, we do operate as a group. And it just so happens it probably does concur with the way I've started the evening. But I think moving the members and delegates to the end of the agenda is really losing nothing. And though I think it's important we continue to do it, I think that is the appropriate spot to put it. The issue that was raised around the public question time, the place is in the council meeting and certainly not at 10:30 at night. And this motion addresses that by putting it in after the deputations and petitions, so that works as well. Establishing a working group, I didn't come in here thinking we needed it necessarily. I don't think there's any harm in it. It might come back and say everything we're doing is spot on and we should keep doing it. That is certainly one of the possibilities, and I look forward to seeing what that group does have. So I will be supporting it, and I feel we all should.
I have a question.
Davis, you have a question?
Yeah, when do we decide would we decide who goes on that committee after this meeting, after this motion?
That's what I was just chatting with the CEO, that it would come as a report at our next council meeting, okay, to determine the constitution of that committee and who was to be on it.
Okay, cool.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you. I'd just like to, I was just curious that we've got item 7 there, which is an additional scope item, if you like. It doesn't quite relate to the topic of public openness and transparency for me. And again, I'd like to also have clarification of what the problem is as to why we need a working group, and establish and understand the problem first, if there is one. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question about topic 7 as well, and that is, I don't have a lot of information about this. What would the terms of reference of this group be? What would it actually be looking at? It's going to spend a year meeting, apparently, and come back by the end of the year with recommendations about what particularly. It's very unclear, and what I would ask is that likely to be clarified by any, and it doesn't actually say there's going to be a report from administration coming back to us in this particular motion. So again, that's not clear either. That's something that's just anecdotally presented to us tonight. So I'd want to know when any report on that might come back, and would it also include any terms of reference? Because to join a committee like that, you would like to know what you would actually be doing, potentially. So, can you clarify that at all? Good.
Do you want to make a variation if you want? Yeah, if the seconder agrees, I'm happy to remove item 7. I clearly need to clarify the matters a little bit more before I bring it to the chamber. We certainly have not done any review of the governance structures at the City of Burnside in the last 8 years, and I've been here, and I think it's probably a timely thing that we should actually look at the governance structures every now and then, but I warrant I'm not entirely clear with number 7, and setting out all the objectives and reviewing what other councils are doing with their committee structures and etc. But I will withdraw it if I get agreement from the seconder, if that's all right.
I like the motion even more.
Through the Mayor, we actually have reviewed our governance structure within the last 8 years. As the council, if you recall, 8 years ago, we actually had 2 subcommittees. We had a community subcommittee, and we had an infrastructure subcommittee, which was all of council, and we did this revolving seat thing, if you remember. Yep. And the administration put a report to the council at that point in time saying all we did was have a revolving seat thing where we just had different people chairing the meeting at the time. The chairs of those meetings had an additional stipend above and beyond their normal elected member allowance, and our recommendation was to disband those committees. So we did actually have a governance review probably 6 years ago. So we actually have had a reasonable governance review, but that was 6 years ago.
Everyone clear now on the way that the motion stands? That is from items 1 to 6, excluding number 7. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yeah. Slide down so we can read 1 to 4 again. It is on your problem in front of you there. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? If there isn't, then I would put the motion. Oh, sorry, Peter. You don't want to say anything? No. Okay. All right. So I will put the motion. Those who are in favour of it, please raise your hands. And it appears to be unanimous, so we do not have to have a vote against. I think there are a number of issues that were really important, and thank you for your time. I know it's taken a while, but... I didn't put the microphone on. Do I have anyone who wishes to move the motion in relation to the Audit Committee?
I have a question about it.
We have to have a motion first, don't we?
We need someone to... So firstly, we need
to
have nominations for Part 7.
Okay. First of all, we need to have a nomination or nominations for Part 7, Item 7. So who is to be appointed to that committee? So we have one nomination in Councillor Jones. Are there any other? A nomination from Councillor Henschke? And a nomination from Councillor Piggott. I'm assuming you're self-nominating. Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to double check. Is there anyone else who wishes to nominate or nominate anyone else? Okay. All right.
Yep. So 1 to 6.
Right. So, Councillor Davis, you wish to move items 1 to 6? All right. Do you wish to speak on the matter? No. Do we have a seconder, Councillor Lemon? Do you wish to speak? Right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this matter? You wish to ask a question, Councillor Jones?
I'll ask a question first. My understanding is the legislation says we only need to have 1 independent member, and we're proposing that we have 3, which would seem to restrict the number of elected members who can be on this committee, given that there's a maximum of 5. And I think, is that understanding correct? Because I think that's silly. If we've got elected members who want to serve on the Audit Committee, they should be allowed to serve on the Audit Committee.
I'll ask Councillor. I'll ask Ms Reynolds to respond to that.
Through the Mayor, it's in line with our terms of reference. So terms of reference says the Audit Committee must have 5 members with a majority of independent members, which makes it 3 independent members and 2 elected members. The Mayor, by virtue of a position, already has a place in the Audit Committee, which only leaves 1 member from the other elected members. We can change the terms of reference should we want, but at this stage the terms of reference says a majority is required from the independent members.
So,
do you have a subsequent question?
So how would we change the terms of reference to have 1 independent member as per the legislation, and then we have the Mayor and 3 elected members?
Right now, I suppose.
Through the Mayor, we'll need to, one of the elected members will need to raise a motion on notice that the terms of reference for the Audit Committee be brought back to Council for a review, and that needs to be supported by a majority of the elected members.
Can we not do it now?
Could we not do it now? We have the terms of reference in front of us. We have a full report. We have all the information we need for us right now.
Or can it be done now? Would it need to be brought at the next meeting? Or the question is, can we do it now?
Ask for a report.
Yeah, well, they're asking to
through the Mayor, no, the terms of reference can't be changed tonight. The terms of reference is a policy document, and there's a fundamental ruling in council that you can't do policy on the run. So, as Karishma said, if anyone wants to change the terms of reference, you need to put a motion on notice, explain clearly what the purpose of the change to the policy is. It gives advance notice to all elected members of the policy change intent, and then you'll be able to have an informed decision on the night about why the policy is being sought to be changed. But simply seeking to change the policy tonight doesn't give any other elected member advance warning of that intention or all the information they may need to be able to have an informed debate or discussion about it.
So is it reasonable to expect that it could be raised as a motion at the next council meeting by Councillor Jones or anyone else who wishes to, and then ask for a report to be brought back to us at our January meeting?
Absolutely.
What are the fees for elected members?
If that is the case...
Could I just, as a follow-up question on that, in terms of trying to achieve what Councillor Jones was trying to achieve in terms of more of us getting on there, I guess. Could you tell me the legislative requirements there? Are we required, for instance, to have a majority of independent members, or is that a Burnside rule? Is the Mayor's presence on there a Burnside rule, or is that a Local Government Act rule? I was just trying to think of the ways that we could change the rules, not necessarily going back to one independent. It's probably, I mean, given we'd have to put it to next meeting, I'm happy to get it at a later date.
Financial management regulation.
What does it say?
Item 13, para 13 on page 17. Regulation 17 of the Local Government Financial Management Regulations. Do you want me to read that?
Yeah.
Just wondering, we're actually looking at what the LGA say about audit committee constitution.
Although it's in the report on number 13. Councillor Davies just pointed out to me.
What about that?
Through the Mayor, there's no limitation on who can be on the audit committee. There's no requirement for there to be the Mayor or one independent member, but the constitution of the balance of the audit committee can be made up of either independent members or councillors. From recollection, the view of the council some time back when the audit committee terms of reference were changed was that they thought that having a critical mass of independent people on the audit committee would give the council the best, broadest independent scope to overview the business of the council. While some elected members may have expertise in finance and audit, you're not necessarily guaranteed that in the composition of the council, and by having at least 3 members of your audit committee as independents, you know that at the minimum you have a critical mass of people who actually understand the business of audit for the purposes of local government, and that's why the changes were made at that point in time.
I might add that I do not have those skills, and I would not feel at all disturbed if, when the report comes through that we make changes, that there is not a requirement that the Mayor is part of that committee. I think the best people for the job should be the people on that committee, and so I don't think, you know, that I would have no problem with wavering what is current an expectation. Just add that I have trust in whoever is appointed from around this table in doing the right thing and using their integrity on that committee. So we do need now, though, to make a secret ballot for, at this stage, just for the one position.
We do the secret ballot now?
Secret ballot now. Sorry, we do have to raise a motion, vote on 1 to 6. So this is for clauses 1 to 6 that is from the report being received through to the council undertakes secret ballot. So can we have those in favour of that, please? Right, and anyone against? No? Oh, one, okay. Yes, Councillor Jones, but no divisions. Carried. So we... Since we do have 3 people who wish to be on it, and currently there is only one position, I'm going to ask each of those 3 people to have 2 to 3 minutes maximum to just explain why they believe that they are the best person to fulfil that role. And I will do it alphabetically. So where do we go? J, H, 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 H. So that's, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you.
Followed by Councillor Jones, followed by Councillor Piggott.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Okay, dear Mayor and Ward Councillors, tonight I'm asking you to let me to the Audit Committee. I have extensive experience in capital portfolio management, project financial management and controls, asset management and governance, having held senior leadership roles for BHP's Olympic Dam Asset and the South Australian Water Corporation. I've personally conducted capital audits, investment reviews, and was a member of the Investment Review Committee for a capital portfolio at Olympic Dam. I've worked with internal auditors and I've reviewed capital portfolios critically and examined audit reports for management action. I led the Program Management Office and accountants to prepare financial reports. My career spans property, construction, public health, mining, water utilities and public health regulation sectors. My capabilities are underpinned with a Bachelor of Engineering in Civil Engineering, a Masters of Engineering Science in Public Health Engineering, Masters of Business Administration, Diploma in Project Management, and 25 years in mining utilities. So I believe I am a good fit to support the Council in its governance, to support the Council in overseeing its financial reporting, to support them in their internal control structures, their risk management systems, internal and external audit functions, and ethical accountability. Thank you.
I'll just give you a quick rundown of my relevant experience. I'm a chartered accountant with over 25 years' experience. I worked in audit for 12 years with PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte, both in the UK and in Australia. For the past 15 years, I've worked in commerce in major corporates. I was at SA Power Networks for a number of years. I'm currently at ASC, which is Submarine Corp, which is a government business enterprise owned by the Commonwealth Government. Turnover is about 750 million with 2,200 employees. My job there, I'm responsible for monthly board reporting, what we call the Integrated Performance Report, which includes financial results, program performance, risk, safety, capability reporting. I'm responsible for statutory reporting and liaison with the external audit. I'm responsible for preparation of budgets and forecasts, 5-year corporate plan that goes to the Minister, 24-month detailed budget. I'm in charge of the management of our capital expenditure program, and I'm also in charge of all various corporate functions which get audited by internal audit a lot, so I'm very familiar with them. So that's accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, treasury, tax. I am the process owner for a vast raft of financial policies and procedures in our corporate management system, and I have extensive experience of risk management. Recently we have been process mapping all our key financial reports. I've just had to go through the mammoth task of complying with the ATO's Tax Risk Management and Governance Review Guide, so I think I've got a lot of experience relevant to the Council, so I hope you vote for me. Thank you very much.
Wow. Yeah. Well, look, the reason I nominated myself for this is that I have spent most of my working life really responsible for either financial management or governance or both of organisations. It's a space I've worked in both here at Burnside on an audit committee at occasions here in Burnside and at East Waste. But also through my working life, I started as an auditor a long time ago, and really have never got away from having to be responsible at a very high level for the governance and the risk management and the financial management of the organisation I work for. I'm a qualified chartered accountant. I operate as General Manager of the Royal Ag and Horticultural Society, those people who don't know that. And in that role I am responsible for financial management, and I act in a senior role as Chair of the Work Health and Safety Committee. I think I have significant financial and governance acumen, and I do have experience in operating in a thorough and measured way, and that is important in this zone. And I think they are attributes of an ideal Audit Committee member. Having said that, I sit here intending to vote for one of the other two, so I feel I should withdraw my nomination. And apologies to anyone who was going to vote for
it. The high calibre of applicants certainly warrants a review of the terms of reference of this committee. And hopefully when we get this report in January, then there can be an additional person or persons added to this committee. But now I would like Matt and Mr. Spearman to hand around some pieces of paper, please, so that we can conduct a secret ballot. Now, what happens is we just put down one name on this. Now we have only two people. Prior to that would have been different, but we've only got the two people, so if you could just please write down one name. Of course, you can vote for yourself. I did clarify that with everybody when I talked to you, but...
Matt.
There's one for me, I'm allowed.
So just write one name down. We'll then put all of those names into our ice cream bucket of destiny, as we call it, because we're too stingy to afford a hat. We'll count the votes. In the event that there's a tie, we'll put all the names back in the hat, and the first person that I draw out is the loser. In the event there isn't a tie, it's first past the post.
First one out, you've checked, okay.
First one out is the loser.
First one's out, excluded. Yeah, because we had a discussion about that the other day and we couldn't remember which one it was. Yes. Yeah, so it's the first one out is excluded. Excluded, yes. It does seem strange though, doesn't it? It's different. You would have thought the person that you put out would be the successful one. The other way around.
I shouldn't have said loser.
No.
Not the winner.
Yeah.
Second winner.
Second prize.
So Barry at this point is making sure there are 13 votes.
Oh.
And we have 13 votes. So first we have a vote for Councillor Henschke. Second we have a vote for Councillor Henschke. Third we have a vote for Councillor Henschke. Fourth we have a vote for Councillor Jones. Fifth we have a vote for Councillor Jones. Sixth, we have a vote for Councillor Jones. Seventh, we have a vote with a smiley face for Councillor Jones. Yeah. Seventh, we have a vote for eighth, we have a vote for Councillor Henschke. Next, we have a vote for Councillor Jones. Next, we have a vote for Councillor Henschke. It's like an election, isn't it? Yes. We have a vote for Councillor Henschke. We have a vote for Councillor Henschke. And we have a vote for Councillor Jones. So at the end of that round, Councillor Jones has 6 votes and Councillor Henschke has 7 votes.
Right. So, congratulations to Councillor Henschke, and I am sincerely waiting for your motion to come to the next meeting, Councillor Jones.
So we now need to put
Now,
Councillor Henschke
we
into
need
number
to
7.
place Councillor Henschke's name in item 7, and I see out of the corner of my eye Councillor Davis is proposing the motion, which includes point 7, and Councillor Davey is seconding. Do either of you wish to say anything so we can move on? Are those who are in favour, please raise your hands. Oh, wait, we have to do something else? Oh, yes. No payment. Okay, so it's all okay. Yes. So, can we have those in favour, please? And those against? Please for this CEO recruitment committee. Councillor Lemon, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Davis, Councillor Henschke, and Councillor Dawes. Are there any other nominations? All right. So we can move 1 and 2. So can I have a mover? You wish to withdraw, Councillor Davis? All right. So we're down to 4. I'll review those names again shortly. Do we have a mover of this motion for points 1 and 2, please? Councillor Davey, Councillor Davis, moved and seconded. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Now, again, we'll do the similar thing, and I'll be consistent and use the alphabetical order, if that meets with everyone's approval. So we have...
So you need to put 3 names.
We have to write, in this case, you must write down 3 names. Of course, you can include yourself, but there are 3 names to be written on the piece of paper that Matt is about to give us. So the names are Councillor Lemon, Councillor Henschke, Councillor Cornish, and Councillor Dawes. So in alphabetical order, it will be Councillor Cornish speaks first, followed by Councillor Dawes, followed by Councillor Henschke, followed by Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, Mayor Monceau. Just to give you my quick 30-second wrap-up, I am an employee of the state government. I have undertaken a lot of understanding with public policy and public policy directions. I have been on CEO committees of both this organisation and other organisations in the past, so I have quite a bit of history in understanding CEO contracts and the management of performance of them, and I seek another term. So I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be very, very brief, like Councillor Cornish. I've been involved in sports executive management for nearly 40 years now. I come with a perspective as being a CEO myself and also being a board member at state, national, international levels over a long period of time. Where I'm very strong on is making sure that we have measurable KPIs, not only for the CEO but also for the council. I have been a member of interview panels for CEOs in the past, so I've also found that very useful from the point of view of appraising a CEO after an appointment. So that's a very, very brief explanation of how I'd like to be on that panel.
Councillor Dawes, and it's now Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I have had extensive experience in corporate management and leadership. I worked in high performance cultures. Safety leadership was very strong at BHP. I've also had extensive experience in change management. I worked with McKinsey in value-based management change program at the South Australian Water Corporation when it was corporatised in the 1990s. The position does require understanding that local government is responsible for a range of services, and it's to very diverse constituents. And no longer rates rubbish removal service organisation. There are a range of services. It's a very challenging position for a Chief Executive Officer. And the Chief Executive really has to have quite a few skills, stakeholder skills, political skills, as well as operational skills. So it's challenging for a Chief Executive to maintain high levels of competence, and I believe the contribution I can make is understanding those factors in that role, so we have clear, measurable KPIs, and they're realistic, achievable, etc. And in the end, the Council is responsive and relevant to its ratepayers and residents. So thank you for listening.
And Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I've been a member of this committee for 6 years, so during my first stint in local government and the entirety of the last council. So in this room, on the last one standing, that actually has the corporate knowledge that took place in this committee. I remember when we first started, when I started on it 6 years ago, the targets weren't specific, measurable, time-bound and relevant. I've had extensive experience with South Australia's strategic plan, where we actually put together targets that were measurable. With these sorts of appraisals, it's very important that there is equity and that the assessment criteria is fair and measurable, and I believe I've contributed highly to that over the last 6 years with the background I've had in setting targets, and I also believe that I provide a valuable resource in terms of corporate knowledge, so I do hope you support me.
Time to put pen to paper. Remember, we have to put down 3 names, please. 3 names. To remind you, Councillor Lemon, Councillor Henschke, Councillor Cornish and Councillor Dawes. No, I haven't quite done one yet. 1, 2, 3. I wrote down the wrong name down there. Okay.
Just come back.
You just come back for me. Yeah. Just do the others first.
Just keep going.
Yeah, just come back. Done. Yeah, you just call out all the names. So this one, it's all the names are called out as I heard, and each one of them has a vote accordingly.
Yeah, you count that we got 13. Yep.
And the one with the least is eliminated.
I'm just trying to wonder, working out what if there's a tie between.
We'd have to pull out.
There.
Yeah. The two that are in the well ahead, let's assume there's two.
Thank you, Barry. So, first off, we have 1 vote for Councillor Lemon, 1 vote for Councillor Cornish, 1 vote for Councillor Dawes. Again, smiley face. Someone's very happy. 1 vote for Councillor Cornish, 1 vote for Councillor Dawes, 1 vote for Councillor Lemon. 1 vote for Councillor Dawes, 1 vote for Councillor Lemon, 1 vote for Councillor Cornish. 1 vote for Councillor Lemon, 1 vote for Councillor Cornish, 1 vote for Councillor Dawes. One vote for Councillor Dawes, 1 vote for Councillor Cornish, 1 vote for Councillor Henschke. One vote for Councillor Dawes, 1 vote for Councillor Lemon, 1 vote for Councillor Cornish. 1 vote for Councillor Henschke, 1 vote for Councillor Dawes, 1 vote for Councillor Lemon. 1 vote for Councillor Lemon, 1 vote for Councillor Cornish, 1 vote for Councillor Henschke. 1 vote for Councillor Henschke, 1 vote for Councillor Cornish, 1 vote for Councillor Dawes. 1 vote for Councillor Cornish, 1 vote for Councillor Lemon, 1 vote for Councillor Dawes. 1 vote for Councillor Cornish, 1 vote for Councillor Dawes, and 1 vote for Councillor Henschke. 1 vote for Councillor Henschke, 1 vote for Councillor Dawes, and 1 vote for Councillor Cornish. 1 vote for Councillor Cornish, 1 vote for Councillor Dawes, and 1 vote for Councillor Henschke. So at the end of that round, Councillor Lemon has 8 votes, Councillor Henschke has 7 votes, Councillor Cornish has 12 votes, Councillor Dawes has 12 votes, and Councillor Henschke has been eliminated.
So the successful candidates were
Councillor
Lemon, Councillor Cornish, and Councillor Dawes, not necessarily in the order. Can I have a mover, Councillor Davey and Councillor Davis, to nominate and second, move and second, and all those in favour of Councillors Lemon, Cornish and Dawes being on that committee? Anyone against? Unanimous. Right, we will move on to the appointment of delegates and representatives of council subsidiaries and external bodies on page 59.
We need to do these
one at a time. Yes. So I think we are going to need to take this one at a time. So I'll look for someone to move officer's recommendation point 1, 2 and 3 and 4. No, we can't. Just 1 and 2. Oh, sorry, 1 and 2 first. All right, 1 and 2 first. Councillor Davis, and seconded Councillor Hughes. All in favour? Against? Carried. Right, now the first one is East Waste. So can I seek nominations for those who wish to put their hand up for East Waste? Councillor Carbone, Councillor Piggott. Any other nominations? Right, can we then have pieces of paper, and this time one name?
One name.
But we will have them to speak first. Because we need it, so the winner will be, or the one who gets the most nominations will be the primary, and the one who is the runner-up will be the deputy.
Yep.
Is that clear? So that, and now we will speak, and we have Carbone, followed by Piggott.
I feel like I'm at a job interview. I hate these sort of things. But anyway, look, I sent an email out to everyone. You all received it, but I'm aware that there are members of the public who obviously haven't seen it. So I'll just go through the guts of it as to why you should vote for me. I have a deep personal interest in rubbish and rubbish collection. I ran a number of policies at the last election, specifically to do with rubbish. So there are a number of policies I'd like to implement over the next 4 years and so forth. It is on my 20-point plan. But so I have an interest in rubbish. And but why you should vote for me? Well, just going by my email here, I have, and these are specifically to do with obviously East Waste, and that is, I do have 13 years working in the private sector in a middle management, senior management role, depending on the company at the time. And in that time, I've had a very diverse background. So I do have a very diverse skill set. I'm not sort of particular in one area only. So regardless of what the board is discussing at the time, I've got a fairly good understanding of virtually everything that has to do with a medium-sized enterprise. In particular, to do with East Waste, virtually every job I've ever had has had a large number of stakeholders, very closely aligned with the company itself. So most of my career has been in the fruit and vegetable game. The shareholders, the stakeholders of the company I worked for were the people who either supplied us or were tenants or customers, so very closely aligned to what we were trying to achieve. Have a lot of experience in engaging those stakeholders, getting them involved, getting them enthused, getting them along, excited about the journey that we're trying to achieve together. I have tertiary qualifications in business, including an MBA. And I have served on a number of boards before that were very similar to East Waste, including EBEC and the Animal Welfare League. So I hope you can support my motion, my position.
And Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. Perhaps I should start this one by saying I will vote for myself this time. As you're probably aware, I am the current member, or perhaps, yeah, I've been East Waste on East Waste board for, well, actually the last 8 years. I brought to it, when I came to it, very little knowledge in regard to waste and regional subsidiaries. But in that time I've been there, actually I've been quite a positive contributor to the board. And I think that is true. I'm saying it myself. Self-praise is no recommendation. But over that time, East Waste has resolved a long-running dispute they had with the City of Burnside. We appointed 2 excellent general managers, one of which is still there. Driven efficiencies in the business, and also broadened the East Waste offering to actually include education and go down the path of informing residents, what we need to be doing in regard to rubbish. Appointment of elected members to the regional subsidiaries really you do need to put skills on there that are good for the business. And it's all learnt while I was at East Waste, but actually I do have those skills in regard to waste and working on a board that East Waste need. I've got significant knowledge in the business. I understand the broader framework of the East Waste business, and also I have actually been quite closely involved in trying to resolve the solution that has come out of the recyclables issue of China refusing to take our recyclables, and we are in the middle of that. So I'd actually make this point anytime. I think I am well skilled to be the representative of Burnside on East Waste at any time, but in particular right now, I feel I'm doubly so because it is actually quite an important part of it. In regard to resolving policy and affecting policy, Councillor Carbone will be able to do that in this chamber, and that's really where that does come from. And so I think it is important for East Waste, and by definition then it's important for this council. I think that I do continue to be that board member. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Spearman will hand out pieces of paper, and again, this is only one name, please.
have 13 slips. Our first vote goes to Councillor Piggott. Second, Councillor Piggott. Third, Councillor Carbone. Fourth, Councillor Carbone. Fifth, Councillor Piggott. Sixth, Councillor Piggott with a love heart.
That's better than a smile.
Self-praise indeed, Councillor Piggott.
Got a secret admirer.
Vote 7, Councillor Carbone. Number 8, Councillor Piggott. Number 9, Councillor Piggott. Number 10, Councillor Piggott. Number 11, Councillor Piggott. Number 12, Councillor Piggott.
You were neck and neck for half the race.
Number 13, Councillor Piggott. So at the end of the round, Councillor Carbone has 3 votes and Councillor Piggott has 10 votes. Councillor Piggott is the nomination for the member and Councillor Carbone is the nomination for the deputy.
So can I have thank you, Councillor Hughes, who's moved it, and Councillor Davey seconded. So those in favour? Is the Eastern Health Authority, and what I intend doing is just finishing the page 59 and then we'll have a break, or I'll ask for someone to move for a break. So item 5, that we need to fill the space there. Do we have nominations, please? Councillor Cornish.
Councillor Hubel.
Councillor Hubel. Is there anyone else who wishes? And Councillor Henschke. Right, there are 3. Any more? Anyone else nominating? No? All right, so we have 3 nominations for 1 position. There has been a slight change in the direction of this. In the past, there have been 2 representatives of council on this, but the Constitution allows for the councils to make a decision to include a management staff alongside an elected member, and the 5 councils that form Eastern Health Authority have made that decision this time to go with the process of having 1 management staff from each council on that board, along with 1 councillor. Hence the change from 2 councillors to just 1. And I believe our representative is over there in the back corner, hiding. It would be Mr. Heinrich. I was going to call Mr. Magnus Heinrich, who will be the person who represents the council on the EHA board. Hence, he will take over my role of promoting public health as much as possible. And so we will have 3 nominations, but there'll only be 1 name written on the paper. And again, I'm going to stick with being consistent with the alphabetical. So that means it's Councillor Cornish first, followed by Councillor Henschke, and then Hubel.
Thank you, Mayor Burnside. Look, I understand change is a good thing. I have been on the Eastern Health Authority now for 8 years as a board member. It's a great little organisation that does a lot of good in our community with vaccinations, public health, vector control. There's a lot of hoarding and issues that are arising, and look, I've got quite a lot of experience, and clearly the board's about to have quite a significant change with all elected members. All 10 of the board were elected members, and now it'll only be 5 elected members and 5 staff from each of the councils. So I'm really putting my hat in the ring to keep a bit of continuity on that board, not understanding what the other councils are going to vote for as well. But understand if the chamber votes for someone else to be the new lead. It's a yeah, it's a really worthwhile board to be on, and any one of us, I think, will do a great job there. Thank you.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Dear councillors, I did a Masters in Public Health Engineering. I understand public health. I worked in the health department, in fact, Health SA, believe it or not. I worked there administering the regulations under the Waste Control Systems Act. I worked alongside others that were administering regulations under the Health Act. So the Eastern Health Authority interests me in that I believe I have got skills to contribute to that board. My business experience in corporate life is there as well, as you've heard already. It is a great organisation for vaccinations for the community, so I believe it provides a great public interest service to our constituents in Burnside Council. Thank you.
Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Mayor Monso. Look, I want to acknowledge the high calibre of Councillors Henschke and Cornish for this position. I won't withdraw my nomination though, but I do think that you're both wonderful candidates for this. I guess in particular interest to me in Eastern Health is the big theme for strategic direction in environmental health, and that is a big a passion of mine, in that our environment should support the health and well-being of our community. I have a personal interest also in the boosting of mental health and well-being in the community, and by being part of the Eastern Health Board, I would hope to be involved in affecting that change. But I think the first councillors to speak, one of them will have my vote.
I might add that the first meeting you are required to attend is tomorrow night. As I said, we has So when these names are called out, this will eliminate one.
Thank you, Barry. We have 13 slips, and the first vote goes to Councillor Cornish. Next we have Councillor Cornish, also with a love heart. There's a lot of love in the room tonight. Councillor...
We're picking on you, Mr Dawes.
One vote for Councillor Henschke. Another vote for Councillor Henschke. Vote for Councillor Hubel. Another vote for Councillor Hubel. Vote for Councillor Cornish. Vote for Councillor Henschke with a sunflower.
animated versions.
A vote for Councillor Hubel. Vote for Councillor Henschke. Vote for Councillor Cornish. Vote for Councillor Hubel. Yep. And a vote for Councillor Cornish.
Whoa.
So after the first round, we have 5 votes for Councillor Cornish, and 4 for Councillor Henschke, and 4 for Councillor Hubel. So
for Hubel and Henschke,
just one of each.
and the one that gets drawn.
So it's just one for Councillor Henschke and one for Councillor
That's
Hubel.
correct.
And I pull one out.
That's right.
And
And
who
the
gets pulled
first
out is
one-
eliminated.
Yeah, so you choose, and I'll pull.
Yeah.
No, is that yeah? No, we don't.
No, we don't need round two.
So that's Hubel.
No, we don't want to see them.
Fold them the same way.
Fold them exactly the same
Exactly the
way, same shape. Oh yeah.
You do need to do 2 because it would have...
Right, so what happens now, because there's been a tie, there is one who is ahead, the other 2 are tied. So what happens is the name of each of the 2 who are currently tied go into the container, and then Paul will pull out one. The first one that is pulled out is the person who is eliminated. Right? That means we will not have to vote again. It will be Councillor Cornish, and then followed by the non-named person.
If the council wants to vote again, that's entirely up to the council, but the protocol is that's how we
Protocol
vote.
is like that.
We can go to another...
I did initially because I thought that was the case, but then I checked and it's not.
In the event
But
of a
if you
tie...
feel that I've confused you, then I'm happy for us to do it again.
Just do it again.
Just do it again. All right, shall I
Just do a
get
show
show
of
of hands, please? Those who believe that we should be voting again. After this is done, we should be voting again.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Those
5.
who 5 in favour, those who are against.
1, 2, 3,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right,
So we will
I'll pull the name out.
pull a name out.
And Councillor Henschke.
So Councillor
Henschke
Henschke
is
is eliminated.
And
That
Councillor
means-
Hubel is the deputy.
Deputy, all right. So Councillor Cornish is appointed. Councillor Hubel will be the deputy, and thank you for everybody who has nominated so far. We have 3 that do not require. Oh, there are several who are not required, where there are not required for any voting to take place. So, can we move according to this motion first? Those who are in favour of Councillor Cornish as the board member 1 and the deputy board member Councillor Hubel. 1, 2, 3. Anyone against? Right. Okay. Oh, sorry, Davis and Piggott. Thank you. So, yes. All right, now the next one is...
Do you want to do the rest in bulk?
Well, I think we can, can't we? Yeah. Yes, because these ones are all... Sorry.
All of them? Yeah. Councillor Lemon's
Yeah,
moving.
these ones are all staff members who are represented, just for everyone to understand, or myself on 2 of them. And obviously if there are issues to do with my being available, and I believe the previous mayor did this also, that he would appoint or ask someone to represent him in those, in numbers 10, 11 and 12. So we worry about that when the time gets closer. So thank you, Councillor Lemon, for moving.
I move items 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12.
And do I have a seconder? Councillor Davis? And any debate? Right, shall I put the motion? Those in favour? Those against? Unanimous. I'd like someone to move for a recess for right, Councillor Piggott and Councillor Davis. 10 minutes. We resume at 9:20. Second? If we had a seconder?
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. In favour? Against? Right, 10 minutes. We resume at 9:20.
How are you finding it so far?
Okay, so
enjoying it?
It's all right so far. Do I have anyone who wishes to move this motion, please? Councillor Davis? Don't want to speak. Councillor Cornish is seconding. Anything you wish to add? All right. Those in favour? Those against? Unanimous? Not unanimous because there is an elected member absent from the room. It's still unanimous though because everyone... Page 143 is the next motion, and I'd like to preface this before we start by the CEO just addressing us about some issues. Sorry, Councillor Hubel wishes to make a statement.
I wanted to declare a perceived conflict of interest on this agenda item. One of the candidates seeking appointment as an independent board member is a partner at a law firm where my wife is also a partner, which effectively makes them business partners. So I'm going to remove myself from the chamber for the debate and vote of this motion and return after 14.6 has been resolved.
Thank you. Right, I'll ask our CEO to speak about some things that have occurred since this was written.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, there's a revised officer's recommendation on your screen. The revised recommendation deals with the appointment of Anita Caruso as the independent board member.
Sorry, excuse me, but I have to declare an
sorry,
interest.
You do too.
I do have to actually declare a perceived interest, but actually... I will have to declare a material conflict of interest and leave the chamber, so there will need to be someone to take over this role during the proceedings for this motion.
Can I nominate a person?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I seek nominations for acting presiding member for this particular item.
Can I nominate Mr Piggott, please?
Councillor Piggott has been nominated by Councillor Dawes. Councillor Lemon, you... I was going to nominate Councillor Cornish, but I'll withdraw that. I second. Beg pardon? I second. Okay. No other nominations. Can I have a motion, please, that Councillor Piggott be the acting presiding member for this item of business? All in favour? Who votes? Sorry, who's moving? Councillor Lemon is moving. Who's seconding? Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Councillor Piggott. So it's not the rest of the term? No. Slip rule. Slip rule. Welcome to the big chair.
Oh, thank you. That's right. Okay, so you were going to provide a statement, is that right?
Thank you, acting presiding member. Yes. The original officer's recommendation had Anita Caruso as the nominated person for appointment to the board. It became clear to us that given the fact that we went through a recruitment process during the caretaker period, which meant that there were no elected members on the selection panel, it probably wasn't a thorough recruitment process in terms of transparency for the purposes of elected member involvement. We had two candidates who were standouts, and the officer's recommendation is now has been revised to include both. We're still recommending that Anita Caruso be appointed. She has a skill set that is directly related to retirement villages. She's a lawyer with Fisher Jeffries, as you all know. But Bruce Bangler has been on the board for the last 6 years. He is the current treasurer. He has a wealth of knowledge in relation to both BRSI, but also in terms of finance and treasury. So we've amended our recommendation to incorporate both members, which is allowable under the Constitution. It covers off on the treasury accountancy aspect and continuity of term as far as Bruce is concerned, but it also introduces a new board member in Ms Caruso, who has, as I said, a wealth of experience in respect of retirement villages, which is her bread and butter at her firm at Fisher Jeffries. So I have subsequently amended the officer's recommendation to reflect that.
I have to put forward a conflict of interest here. Just because it's been changed, I know Bruce Spangler from my basketball days, so I feel I will have to leave the room as well in that case.
So you're doing a material conflict of interest, perceived, but are leaving the room? Thank you. Yeah. Okay, could I have anyone wishing to run a motion? Councillor Davis. I was just looking for better alternatives. Seconder for the motion? Councillor Lemon? Indeed, indeed. Discussion? Yes, thank you. Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor, Acting Mayor. I think it's right. I noticed Anita Caruso's experience related strongly in respect to divestment of, or is it divestment of properties? And I was curious as to were there any pertinent strategies in place for that retirement village, or is it business as usual? I mean, why is she a good fit for the current strategy for that village? Thank you.
Through you, Acting Presiding Member, as I mentioned before, Ms Caruso's field of expertise is in retirement villages across the board. She has, as I understand it, a number of clients who are retirement village owners, and she advises them about strategies, strategic planning, financial planning, etc. It's not a specific skill set that's embedded within the current board. While there are two other lawyers on the board at the moment, their expertise are in governance, and I'm just trying to think of the chair's expertise, but it's not retirement village related. So at this point in time, there is no one on the board. While they have general expertise in managing a board, there isn't a skill set there at the moment that relates directly to managing a retirement village, and that's what she would bring to that board.
Could I ask a question? And it's in regard to the terms of the appointments for Anita Caruso and Bruce Spangler. Is that covered there?
Yes, in part 4, Acting Presiding Member, their period of 3 years.
Sorry, all for 3 years.
Yes.
Right. So we'll have effectively members, one coming up next year, the year after, and then these two in year 3.
That's correct. And if memory serves,
any other discussion? No? I'm back to the proposer. Don't wish to sum up, Councillor Davis? Okay, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? Unanimous? Oh, I thank you for this opportunity to act as presiding member.
Moving on to 14.7, the appointment of elected members to the Council Assessment Panel. In this case, we have to move 1 and 2, so I can have Councillor Davis, Councillor Davey moving and seconding. This is numbers 1 and 2 of this officer's recommendation. All in favour? Against? No? Okay. Now, we need nominations. There is one member of CAP and a deputy member of CAP. So we will need nominations first. There'll be one position, but with a deputy as well.
If we have 2 nominations, then the person who is successful will be the member and the unsuccessful person will be deputy. If we only have 1 nomination, we'll have to do it twice.
Yeah. Or if we have more than that,
and then
we might do it, yeah. I just said that if there are a lot more than that, then we will have to go through the process. Let's see how many we've got first. All right, so nominations for CAP. Councillor Henschke. Oh, Councillor, thank you very much. Councillor Jones. Is there anyone else who wishes?
Just hold on a second.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Before we have nominations, I've just been alerted to paragraph 14 of the report, which says that while independent members of the CAP are required to be accredited professionals, the same requirement does not apply to council members. However, before making an appointment, the council must be satisfied that the appointee is appropriately qualified to act as a member of the CAP on account of the person's experience in local government, which is contained in section 83 part 2 of the Planning Development Infrastructure Act.
It's going to be somewhat difficult with 2 people who are completely new to council, isn't it?
Well, you have some who have already been on CAP.
Oh, no, but the 2 who've nominated so far.
No, that's why I said it. So
yeah, okay, all right. All right, fine. Councillor Lemon, you'd like to nominate? 3. That's 3. Assuming that the other 2 remaining who have already nominated wish to remain. Okay, so we've got 3. All right, so we have 3 nominations. Councillor Lemon, Councillor Henschke and Councillor Jones. And I will follow the same way as we've done before, alphabetically, and just keeping in mind what it says in 14. I'm not going to read it again, it's there in front of you. And those people who, of course, are going to speak might wish to focus particularly on those comments that are in point 14. The first one up is Councillor Henschke. Yep, Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm asking you to elect me to the Council Assessment Panel this evening. I have a Bachelor of Engineering in Civil Engineering, so I understand buildings. I've also got a diploma in Project Management and, as mentioned before, Business Administration and Engineering Science. I do have extensive experience in civil engineering, in projects, property and facilities management. I've had experience in master planning with Planning SA, working with the Murray Bridge Local Council. And my family ties go back to 1915. I have a deep connection with heritage in the Rose Park Turret Gardens ward. My husband's family built this bungalow that we live in 1915. It's on a War Memorial Avenue in Turret Gardens. So I acknowledge the history of this place and the elements valued by the community. And heritage isn't just places listed on a register, it's more than that. It's all the things that build our community pride, our children's future, enrich the culture and attract visitors. Now, our community pride is so important when we have submissions going to a council assessment panel. The community do want properties developed and delivered that will be tomorrow's heritage. So if elected, I will ensure we do have the best development so it can be tomorrow's heritage. And I hope to count on your vote tonight to strengthen our community and nurture and protect the unique character of the city of Burnside. Thank you.
Jones.
I stood on a platform that inappropriate development is destroying the city of Burnside and that we have lost far too many trees and something needs to be done about it, and that's why I'm standing.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. And now Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I was a member of the former, it is now the Council Assessment Panel, but it was previously the Development Assessment Panel, and I served on that every other year since my election, so I've been on that for 5 years as a member of the Council Assessment Panel, was the Development Assessment Panel. I first became involved in that when the then state government released the 30-year plan for Greater Adelaide, which I took a large interest in because I knew that this would have huge implications for Burnside. Subsequent to that initial release in 2009, I think that was initially released, that has now been, there's another iteration of that. It's very important that whoever goes onto the panel from council is across what's happening with state planning right now. The Act changed in 2016. The new State Planning Act was enacted by the previous government, and they're currently going through a period of consultation where a raft of information is going out for public consultation. I've actually responded to each one of those as an individual and as a ward councillor because, in my view, in Burnside, the two wards that are the most impacted, and I'm not saying that all wards aren't, but the two that are the most impacted are Eastwood and Glenunga, and Toorak Gardens, at Rose Park and Toorak Gardens, because of their proximity to the inner city. It's very important that we keep a finger on the pulse because there are a lot of elements that are actually part of this whole development. And we're talking about things like urban corridors, we're talking about mixed-use developments, we're talking about the sorts of stuff that happens on Greenhill Road, Fullerton Road, Kensington Road, Glen Osmond Road. Really important that we know about that and that we take that to the community, the council assessment panel. I'm not altogether sure that the independent members of the assessment panel are across this, as well as others are, and I'm not sure that they're across all the permutations of things that can actually affect the city of Burnside. What they do is they look at every development in isolation. That is their charter. They do pay attention to streetscape, they do pay attention to heritage matters, but only insofar as our current development procedures allow them to. This new Act will be rolled out and in operation in the middle of 2020. It is really important that we keep our finger on, and not just whoever sits on the council assessment panel, but this entire council needs to keep its finger on the pulse of things, because this can change the flavour of our suburbs forever and a day. Our tree canopy, as Councillor Jones said, our tree canopy in Glenside has diminished by over 10% in the last 10 years. Ditto with the tree canopy in Burnside. We need to make sure that we maintain the leafiness of our suburb. Not the least reason is because of climate change and the impact that the lack of trees will have on our suburb. And there's heaps that I could talk about, but I'm not going to give you a lecture about the new Planning Act. I just feel that it's very important that you have someone that understands this, understands it very well, understands the nature of the redevelopment in Glenside, and I've been involved with that in terms of being an advocate for my local area from the start. And that's the person that you need to have on the council assessment panel.
Thank you, Barry. We have 13 votes. So first vote is Councillor Lemon with a Star of David. That's different.
Or a star.
No, it's a Star of
It is
David.
a Star of David. You're absolutely right. The shape is.
One vote for Councillor Jones. We have an artistic bunch here. One vote for Councillor Henschke. One vote for Councillor Lemon. One vote for Councillor Henschke. One vote for Councillor Henschke. One vote for Councillor Jones. One vote for Councillor Henschke with a little car. A little car with a big exhaust plume. One vote for Councillor Henschke.
I thought you rode your bike.
One vote for Councillor Lemon with another semi-happy face. It's hard to tell. Some people are more artistic than others. I'm not an artistic critic, so I won't go into that. Another vote for Councillor Henschke. A vote for Councillor Lemon. And another vote for Councillor Lemon. So at the conclusion of that, Councillor Jones has 2 votes, Councillor Henschke has 6 votes, and Councillor Lemon has 5 votes. Councillor Jones is eliminated, and on the basis of our previous determination, Councillor Henschke is the appointee to the CAP, and Councillor Lemon is the deputy.
Right. So we now only need to do Right, 15.1 nil, 15.2 nil, 15.3 nil, 15.4 nil, 15.5 nil. Council correspondence nil. Other business. Is there any matter that anyone wishes to raise as other business tonight? Councillor Dawes.
Can I just check that the bus tour on Saturday is starting at 8:30? If I can just have that confirmed.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was to meet here, I believe?
In the elections, meeting the elections
in the foyer.
In the foyer. Okay. Thank you.
Do we need any closed cap shoes or anything for safety? Walking shoes? Okay, thank you.
We don't need a hard hat, we don't need any protective gear, we don't need any fluoro yellow or anything, and we don't even need walking shoes. So come as you are, but casual and relaxed and ready to have a little look around Burnside. Well, if you're out in the sun or it's a sunny day and you want skincare protection, absolutely wear a hat. Okay, and water bottles, bring your own water. You'll be supplying? Okay. Sorry? Okay.
Supplied by me.
No, it's a workplace, therefore no. Confidential items, we have no confidential items. So I am, unless there is anything else that we've missed, I'm closing the meeting at 21:55. And thank you for all of your attendance and attention, and look forward to our next meeting on the 11th of December.